All right. So we have three great panelists to discuss SB 375 with you, from the regional down to the local level. I'm not going to spend very much time, but I just want to introduce them. We have Hing Wong from ABAG, Steve Ross from the county, and Laurel Prevetti from the city of San Jose. Since I'm not the panelist, I'm going to switch very quickly over to these folks. We're going to give a short presentation, and then we'll leave plenty of time for discussion. So have your questions ready. All right. With that, let me introduce Hing Wong.
Thanks, Justin. Like what Justin said, all three of us will have fairly short presentations. There are quite a few slides that we will go over fairly quickly. If you don't mind, please hold your questions towards the end so that we'll be able to cover everything and answer all the questions towards the end. SB 375 is probably one of the most talked about and perhaps least understood bills of the past legislative session recently signed by law. SB 375 will assign each region in the state that is represented by a metropolitan planning organization a greenhouse gas reduction target associated with emissions from cars and light trucks. The law is much more complex than setting targets, as it touches on planning for transportation, for housing, and for the environment. ABAG, which is the Association of Bay Area Governments and where I work at, as well as the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, also known as MTC, are developing the Sustainable Community Strategy with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District and San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission. These four regional agencies will team up with local governments, county congestion management agencies, also known as CMAs, local planning directors, city and county city managers, and other organizations to ensure that all those who have a stake in this outcome are actively involved in the strategy's preparation over the upcoming months. There are still some uncertainties about the ultimate outcome of SB 375 implementation. While we're in the early stage to meet the requirements of the law, the steps are fairly complex. We are still in these early stages of a multi-year process and to establish emission reduction targets and formulate initial plans. Much more work remains before the true effects of 375 of land use planning will become clear. SB 375 builds on existing laws and processes by keeping decision-making at the local level, and I'm glad that we have a person from the county and a person from a city here. This is a bottom-up approach to ensure that cities and counties are involved in the development of regional plans to achieve these targets. Public participation is paramount, as there are a number of events and programs to offer influence. The legislature passed AB 32, which is the Global Warming Solution Act of 2006, which requires the state to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to the 1990 levels no later than the year 2020. AB 32 does set the stage for SB 375. SB 375 asserts that without improved land use and transportation policy, California would not be able to achieve the goal of AB 32. The issue was not if land use and transportation policy were going to be connected to reduce greenhouse gas emission, but how and when. We have long been aware on the impacts of climate change, and such as loss of snowpack, sea level rise, and more extreme hot days. In 2006, the legislature and governor signed this landmark legislation. AB 32 established the first comprehensive program in the nation for reducing greenhouse gas emission. As mentioned before, AB 32 sets the goal to reduce emission back to the 1990 level by the year 2020. In 2008, the Air Research Board adopted a climate change scoping plan to outline how to achieve the 2020 goal, as well as achieving a long-term goal of 80% reduction of the 1990 levels by the year 2050. The plan contains a comprehensive mix of strategies to reduce greenhouse gas from all sectors of the economy, including emissions, standards for cars, carbon intensity standards for fuel, and cap and trade programs from industrial sources. Steve will take care of the next two slides.
Hi, I'm Steve Ross from the county. I wanted to put some numbers to these programs here. In the scoping plan, they first calculated what they thought would be the business as usual emissions, and 596 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. That's the MMTCO2e. And of that, they think that, according to the scoping plan, they might really be able to get, they'll need to get to 427. The scoping plan thinks that they can do that. On the previous slide, the number, the bottom, they think they can get 174 MMTO and TCO2e reductions of emissions, which is what they would need to get down to 1990 levels by 2020. Of that, all of the programs that they were mentioned on the previous slide, cap and trade, targeting specific industries, the #1 contribution will probably be from the improved fuel emissions from the Pavley bill. They're estimating maybe 20% of the 174 might come from there. It's about 30 MMTCO2e will come from that. The regional transportation related target is only 5 million tons. That is part of what SB 375 will be addressing. SB 375, their total reduction does get to include other things like lower carbon fuels and the Pavley bill efficiency. But pure transportation related greenhouse reductions might only be 5 million. But that's a big number because that's the equivalent of 216,000 cars driving for a year, 1 million metric tons.